risen.
Truly is risen.
Christos anesti.
Christos anesti.
Amasik kam.
Akan kam.
Christos anviat. There's the Romans. Okay. Brothers and sisters in Christ, we continue our celebration of the Paschal season. Last week, of course, last Sunday, we had our celebration of Pascha, and we did that in two parts. Of course, we had our service Saturday night, and that was the primary service that we had. And then Sunday afternoon, we did this service we have needed to do for a long time, the Agape Vespers. And I told you at that service, because we had the gospel reading, we did the gospel reading in several languages, that reading bookmarked that. So what we read at the Agape Vespers is the first half of what we just heard in this gospel reading for Thomas Sunday. And so we'll be looking at that in a moment. Now, as you recall, I know a lot of water has gone under the bridge, but as you recall, when we were coming to Lazarus Saturday, Palm Sunday, I said that Jesus Christ's entrance into Jerusalem and all the events that follow are a divine drama. And we act out that divine drama. And so we did all of those things during Holy Week, starting with Palm Sunday. We had our Pascha service and the empty tomb, and we continued with them. Well, we continued a Paschal season for the next several weeks. And our Sundays have particular things that are still related to Pascha. So this week we are looking at Thomas, the doubting Thomas. And next week we will look at the myrrh-bearing women, Joseph of Arimathea, and Nicodemus. And those people that were associated with the burial of Jesus Christ. And then we transition onwards after that. So we do have this story of Thomas. And what came to mind for me, really to set the stage of what was happening for those disciples at that time, was, we may have experiences in our lives where we spend time with people, and it's a bonding experience. And I thought back to going to seminary. You go to school for 3 years. You're with the same group of people for 3 years. But it's not just school. You live on the same campus. You pray together. You go to classes together. You study together. And you do church things together. One of the things that happens is a bishop will come to the area and visit. And when he comes on a week into a parish, all of the seminarians go to that parish. And you do things together. And so after a 3-year experience, you graduate. And some of the closest relationships that I have are with my classmates from seminary. And so when I go to big gatherings of our archdiocese, usually the first people that I see or want to see are my seminary classmates. Now that's just a human experience that we have. God is present in seminary and all of that. But it's different for the disciples. They spent 3 years living together, traveling together, working together with Jesus Christ. So this is the fundamental difference. They were with the Messiah. So imagine, if you will, they're in this place where they've been doing all this work together for 3 years. They have this big anticipation on Palm Sunday. And as they go through Holy Week, it's this frightening thing where the circumstances around them in Jerusalem are getting worse and worse and worse. Until it's the whole thing in the garden where Jesus is arrested and being hauled off, questioned, tried, beaten, and ultimately crucified. And he dies. So that is the place where the disciples were on that first Sunday. But some things started happening on that first Sunday. The myrrh-bearing women, it's interesting, they were the last ones to see Jesus. He died on the cross. The disciples were somewhere else. They were the first to the tomb. They discovered the empty tomb. So they had that first witness. Mary Magdalene ran into Jesus in that cemetery. She saw the risen Lord. Came and gave the message to the disciples. Peter and St. John went out to the cemetery. They found the empty tomb. They had an encounter with Christ. They came back. Then we hear about the 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus. And while they're traveling, leaving Jerusalem to an adjacent town, someone joins them, and they start talking about what had just happened in Jerusalem, the death of Jesus Christ. And they start to have dinner together, and they realize that Jesus Christ is who's with them. And so Jesus disappears from them, and they say, we have to go back to Jerusalem and tell everyone. And they go back, and they tell everyone. This is all on that first Sunday. And after they've done that, they're in this room, the door's locked, and Jesus comes to them. And he's not just an appearance or an apparition. There is this miraculous element of him physically coming into a locked room. But he tells them, it's me. Look. This is where they put the nails in my hands. Look here in my side. This is where they pierced me with the spear. And they believed. Now for them, gathered at that point, they were experiencing firsthand the risen Lord. And so all of that anguish and despair that they had had for the past few days evaporated. This is where we get to Thomas. Now Thomas was not party to any of this. He didn't go to the cemetery. He wasn't on the road to Emmaus. He wasn't in that room for that meal. And there's two reasons that are typically offered why he wasn't around. One was, we keep hearing this phrase, for fear of the Jews. They had remained in Jerusalem because it was the Passover festival, but they were associated with Jesus. And so there was still this worry that they might be grabbed and tried and crucified for being followers of Christ. So there was this element of hiding. And Thomas may have said, well, I'm particularly scared, I'm going to go hide somewhere. But there's also this element of despondency. That's often offered. He was so shattered that Jesus Christ, this man that he had followed and worked with, ate with, slept with, traveled with, and there was this great anticipation of what that would all lead up to. Didn't happen. And he died. That was the question that was there for him. So it may have been, he's just kind of finished there. So subsequent to this first Sunday, the disciples find Thomas, say, we've seen the risen Lord. And because of his despondency and lack of belief, he says, I won't believe it. You tell me the story where he appeared and he had the wounds, and you could touch the wounds if you needed to. I won't believe unless I see him like you did, and if I can put my hands in his wounds. So this is where we get this second reading, the second part that we heard today, we didn't hear last Sunday, is that the following week on that Sunday, so that would equate in kind of our divine drama to today, that the same thing happens. They're in this room still. They're still in Jerusalem. The door's locked. But this time, Thomas is with them. And Jesus appears. And as we hear, the first thing that Jesus says is, oh, Thomas. And it's almost as if he knew it and heard the story. Oh, Thomas, I understand you don't believe I'm risen from the dead. Here you go. Put your hands in my wounds. I heard that's what you want to do. And you can put your hand in my side. I heard that's what you wanted to do. And that was enough for Thomas. And what was his response? My Lord and my God. So he's recognizing that he is the one that he had been following. Thomas realizing that Jesus Christ present in front of him is that Lord he had been following those 3 years. And also recognizing that the only way possible that Jesus physically could be standing in front of him was that because Jesus is God. My Lord, my God. And what's interesting is what Jesus offers. I paraphrase a lot. I'm terrible at that. So Jesus says to him, have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen, yet believe. So in that statement, Jesus Christ is saying, blessed are those who don't get this experience. That's for us. We weren't in that room. We did not have the opportunity to go back 2,000 years and go to the cemetery or walk on the road of Emmaus. We know as we progress through the season, we have an ascension. Jesus ascends into heaven. We have not been given the opportunity to physically see Jesus, to have that as something to build our faith. But it points to something important. We have a reading during the Orthodox service, right before this service. It's called the Synoxary, but it's basically who are the saints of the day, what is special or particular about the day. And one of the things that's highlighted is this theme of Thomas Sunday. It's not just because Thomas was in our gospel reading, and Thomas is kind of that theme, but it points to what we have been given here. There's also this phrase that's used to refer to this Sunday. It's called Antipascha, which means in place of Pascha. And what the church recognizes is that Sunday has to be a celebration of the resurrection. So in a sense, it's establishing that as the theme that we have now, and that we do every single Sunday. The experience of Thomas is one we cannot have. But Jesus says, blessed are those who have not seen and believe. But we stumble. So it's that reminder, and it's that importance that's underlined. Every Sunday, we celebrate the resurrection. And that's so that you can come and be reminded and believe in Jesus Christ's resurrection. And come and be reminded that Jesus Christ's resurrection is not just something that happened to us, but it is work that he has done for you and for your salvation. And you don't have to forget that. You don't have to be lost. You can come to church and get a reminder every single Sunday. So I know many of you provide care to others. A lot of health care folks in our parish. Or parents. You have to care for your children. I know we're getting to the point where some families, you have to care for the parents as well. I know that you do a lot day in and day out. You provide care. You extend love. You help those around you. And it can deplete you. And the danger is it can lead you to doubt your faith. So the church says, blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. Come back. Come on Sunday. We will point back at the resurrection, and that will charge you for the week. You will be uplifted. You will be edified. You will be given strength to provide the love that you have in Christ for those around you. Christ is risen.
Truly is risen.